Good morning, kids. Today we're going to read another book on Epic, and I want you to kind of see how I looked through Epic to get up on to the book we're going to read today. As you can see up here in the search bar, I searched for books about insects, and then you can come down and you can kind of look at how old you are. You can choose that. You can choose your DRA level. You can choose a fiction book or a nonfiction book. You can look at what kind of book you want to read. If you want picture books, if you want chapter books, if you want comic or books or graphic novels, that's cool. You can look at the language. And sometimes there's a quiz. So, today I've chosen this book. It's called Insects, E2E. We're going to read about some insects. Oh, whoops. Start at the beginning. What's bugging you? We live in a world of insects. Of the 1.5 million kinds of animals identified by scientists, about 1 million are insects. Insects live almost anywhere, except deep in the ocean. Many swarm in the hottest jungles, but others live in the coldest areas like the North Pole. Wow. Insects have 6 legs, and they have no backbone. Creatures like insects without backbones are called invertebrates. Some insects, such as butterflies, have wings, while others, such as ants, do not have wings. Insects are sometimes known as bugs, but not all bugs are insects. The spider, for example, is not an insect. This is because spiders have 8 legs, not 6. Chapter 2, The Weird, Wonderful World of Insects. Without noses, insects smell with their antennae. Some of them taste with their feet and hear with the hairs on their bodies. Insects have no lungs but breathe through very small holes called spiracles on the sides of their bodies. In addition to having 6 legs, all insects have 3 parts to their bodies. These parts are the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. The head is at the front of the insect. The head has eyes, a mouth, and antennae, or feelers. They use these antennae for touching and smelling. The thorax is in the middle of the body. This is usually where the legs grow. Some insects have ears in their thorax as well. The last and largest section of the insect is the abdomen. This is where the insect breathes through spiracles. Now, if you look at this page, you can see a lot going on here, and we can tell it's a nonfiction book because it has a lot of nonfiction elements. It has some photos and captions down here. It has these words that are in bold, and if you click on it, it'll tell you what that word is. And if we look at the back of the book, these bold words are actually in the glossary, so you can see that later on too. Here we have a diagram with an ant, and its body parts are labeled. All of these are nonfiction text elements. Chapter 3, How Insects Grow. Insects grow through stages. They start as eggs, then they go through metamorphosis, a word that means change. Because there are so many kinds of insects, there are different kinds of metamorphosis. A simple insect will go through the 3 stages of incomplete metamorphosis, changing from an egg into a nymph, a smaller version of the adult insect that sheds its skin several times as it gets bigger. Then it becomes an adult. We can see here an example of that kind of metamorphosis is here with this dragonfly. A butterfly is one type of insect that experiences a complete metamorphosis. It changes into larva instead of a nymph. During the larva stage as a caterpillar, it looks nothing like a butterfly. Then comes the pupa stage or chrysalis. When it breaks out of the chrysalis, the insect has grown wings and becomes a brightly colored butterfly. Chapter 4. Are insects good or bad for us? Insects bother most people, although many people seem to love butterflies. But less than 1% of insects are harmful to humans. Insects that bite, like mosquitoes, can annoy people, and a few insects have deadly poisons. Insects are crucial to the lives of plants because they pollinate them. Bees, moths, butterflies, and other flying insects carry pollen to plants that allows flowers to bloom and for fruit to grow. We're going to learn all about how honeybees are pollinators starting next week. I'm really excited. Insects are also part of the food chain. They eat other insects, and sometimes they're eaten by other animals. Insects even live on or inside the bodies of harmful insects. They are called parasites, and they kill the harmful insects they feed on. Insects also serve as food for fish, birds, and other animals. Wow, this is a picture of a praying mantis eating another insect. I think it's a grasshopper. What an interesting photo. Chapter 5. What should we do about insects? We often attempt to kill insects that bother us by poisoning the insects with insecticides, but such poisons can also get into our food and water supply, hurting the environment. There are other ways for people to keep insects away without using poison. One way to do this is to use citronella. Citronella is a plant that can be made into lotions or candles. Other plants that keep some insects away include rosemary and sage. Although we can try to control the population of insects in general, we have to learn to live with them. After all, there are a whole lot more of them than there are of us. I'm going to skip this page fast, I don't like it. Scientists believe that insects have been around longer than man has, perhaps since the prehistoric era. If all the other insects on Earth were to die somehow, insects could be the last survivors because there are just so many of them, and they have proven to be adaptable over millions of years. Now here's that glossary I was telling y'all about with all of the words that we saw in bold in the book. And then here at the back of the book is an index. That means that if you want to read about a specific thing like antenna, you can look on page 6 and 7, and that's where they talk about antennas in this book. If you want to talk about pollen and pollinating, you can go to pages 14 and 15. If you are curious about metamorphosis, you can look at page 8 and page 10. An index is a handy thing. That's the end of this book, and what's another cool thing about Epic is that they have all of these suggestions for what books you could read next that might seem interesting to you after you've read the book Insects. Woohoo, we got some points. Alright guys, I hope that you enjoyed that book about insects, and I look at all these other ones that you can look at. Lots of cool books about insects. I'd like for you to write in your insect journal, and I'd like for you to write down one question that you have still about insects. I know that you wrote down some questions in one of your other assignments. I wonder if you can go back and look at that question that you wrote down and see if you can find an answer to it. using EPIC. Have a great day, everybody.